Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders, 1722, stands as one of the earliest and most fascinating examples of the English novel. Subtitled The Fortunes and Misfortunes of the Famous Moll Flanders, it traces the life of a woman who navigates through poverty, crime, love and repentance in a morally complex 18th-century world. At first glance, the story appears to be a realistic chronicle of Moll's adventures, told in the first person with journal-like honesty. However, beneath this realism lies a rich web of symbolism. Defoe, a journalist, moralist and Puritan by background, fills Moll's life with symbols that mirror the society she inhabits, a world obsessed with money, appearance and survival. Through objects, events and even names, Defoe explores profound moral and social issues, the conflict between virtue and vice, the nature of repentance, the illusion of respectability and the impact of capitalism on personal identity. In this video, we will explore how Defoe uses symbolism in money, clothing, marriage, crime, repentance and setting to transform a tale of personal adventure into a universal moral allegory. Symbolism in literature refers to the use of symbols, objects, figures or actions that represent deeper meanings beyond their literal sense. For example, a prison can symbolize both punishment and moral reformation. Clothing can suggest both identity and disguise. In Defoe's time, the early 18th century, English fiction was still developing as a genre. Writers like Defoe aimed to present life realistically, but they also sought to instruct and moralize. Hence, Moll Flanders combines realism with moral allegory. The story's realism draws readers into the everyday details of Moll's life, while the symbolic dimension elevates her story into a reflection of the entire moral condition of humanity. Symbolism in Moll Flanders thus serves two purposes. 1. To mirror the social and economic realities of Defoe's England. 2. To illuminate moral and spiritual truths, particularly the tension between sin and repentance. Few symbols dominate Moll Flanders as powerfully as money. From the opening pages, Moll's life revolves around financial security. Born in poverty and left to fend for herself, she quickly learns that in her society, money equals survival, respectability, and freedom. For Moll, money is not just material wealth, it is symbolic of power, safety, and self-respect. Every major decision she makes, including marriage, is guided by financial calculation. She confesses, "I had been tricked once by that cheat called love, but the game was over." Her experiences teach her that romantic love is unreliable, but economic stability is essential. Thus, money symbolizes a moral paradox. It represents both corruption and independence. Moll's desire for wealth drives her into sinful acts, prostitution, theft, and deceit, but it also symbolizes her yearning for autonomy in a patriarchal society that offers women few choices. Defoe uses money symbolically to critique the emerging capitalist morality of his time. In early 18th century England, respectability was often measured by wealth rather than virtue. Defoe mirrors this through Moll's belief that marriage is a trade and that women must market themselves wisely. The marriage market becomes a recurring metaphor. Moll's repeated marriages are not merely romantic misadventures, but symbolic transactions reflecting the commodification of women. Love, in Defoe's world, has become a financial exchange. Critic Ian Watt, in The Rise of the Novel, argues that Defoe's world is the first realistic representation of capitalist society in fiction. Money, in this view, symbolizes both moral decay and social dynamism. It corrupts values but also enables mobility. Moll's life, therefore, becomes a symbolic journey through the economic and moral systems of modern society. In Moll Flanders, clothing functions as a potent symbol of identity, social status, and deception. Moll constantly changes her attire as she moves through different social roles: servant, mistress, wife, thief, and penitent. Each transformation comes with a corresponding change of dress. For Moll, clothing is a means of reinvention. When she dresses like a gentlewoman, people treat her as one. When she wears rags, she becomes invisible. Her clothes thus symbolize the fluidity of identity and the power of appearance in a class-conscious society. Defoe, a master of realism, describes garments in detail, not merely to create visual authenticity, but to highlight the moral hypocrisy of a world that judges people by their appearance. Moll's outward respectability often conceals inner deceit, making clothing a mask of morality. Moll's ability to transform herself through clothing also reveals the theme of social masquerade. Respectability, Defoe suggests, is often nothing more than an elegant disguise. The thief dressed as a lady is no different from the gentlemen who marry for money. In this sense, clothing symbolizes the superficial moral values of 18th century England, where appearance substitutes for virtue and wealth substitutes for character. Marriage, in Moll Flanders, is one of the central symbols through which Defoe explores economic, moral, and emotional themes. For Moll, marriage is never purely romantic. It is a financial arrangement. Her first marriage, based on love, ends in betrayal. Thereafter, she approaches marriage as a business venture. I resolve to be rich if possible. Each union symbolizes a different aspect of her moral journey and her social aspirations. This repetition turns marriage into a symbolic cycle of desire, deception, and downfall. Defoe uses these marriages to critique a society where women must commodify themselves to survive. Among her many unions, her final relationship with Jemmy, the Lancashire husband, stands apart. It is based not on money, but mutual affection. Symbolically, this marriage represents redemption and rebirth. After years of deceit, Moll finds genuine companionship. Their reunion in Virginia marks a moral and spiritual renewal. Thus, marriage evolves from a symbol of economic ambition to one of moral harmony. Moll's criminal life forms the core of her adventures, but it also carries symbolic weight. Theft represents not merely personal greed, but a rebellion against social inequality. Moll steals because society denies her honest means of survival. Yet every theft also deepens her spiritual guilt. Defoe portrays her as both a victim and a sinner, a symbol of humanity's moral struggle. Nowhere does Defoe's symbolism appear more vividly than in the scenes set in Newgate Prison. The prison is a physical space of punishment, but also a spiritual crucible. Here, Moll confronts her sins, faces despair, and experiences genuine repentance. Newgate symbolizes both damnation and salvation. It is the lowest point of Moll's fall and the starting point of her moral resurrection. Defoe, deeply influenced by Puritan theology, uses the prison as an emblem of divine justice and mercy. Moll's repentance in Newgate marks her symbolic death and rebirth. When she says she is born again, Defoe evokes the Christian idea of regeneration. The criminal's cell becomes a symbolic womb of moral renewal. Thus, crime and punishment in Moll Flanders symbolize not only social justice, but spiritual transformation. Names often carry symbolic meaning in literature, and Moll Flanders is no exception. In 18th century slang, moll was a term used for a promiscuous woman or female criminal. Defoe deliberately uses this name to make his heroine representative of the fallen woman archetype. The surname Flanders suggests foreignness, instability, and exile, qualities that define Moll's existence. She is always an outsider, never rooted in one place or identity. Thus, Moll Flanders becomes a symbolic name for the every woman of the modern world, ambitious, adaptable, flawed, yet resilient. She embodies the emerging spirit of individualism in capitalist society, where identity is self-made rather than inherited. The City of London plays a crucial symbolic role in the novel. It is depicted as a place of temptation, opportunity, and moral chaos. Defoe's London is not just a geographical setting, but a moral landscape, a maze of streets where crime, commerce, and desire intersect. London symbolizes the corrupt yet dynamic spirit of modernity. Moll thrives in its anonymity, but also loses her moral compass there. The city becomes a mirror of her inner restlessness. In contrast, the New World, particularly Virginia, symbolizes renewal and redemption. After her imprisonment, Moll is transported to America, where she builds a new life with Jemmy. This journey from the old world to the new represents her transition from sin to virtue, decay to regeneration. The colonial landscape serves as a symbolic space of moral rebirth, echoing Puritan ideals of regeneration through labor and faith. Defoe's use of symbolism is not confined to individual images or events. It extends to the entire moral structure of the novel. Through symbols such as money, marriage, and clothing, Defoe critiques the hypocrisies of a society that values appearance over integrity and wealth over virtue. Moll's story is a microcosm of early capitalist England, where moral values are entangled with economic ambition. Defoe's symbolism often resists clear interpretation. Moll is both sinner and saint, victim and manipulator. This ambiguity gives the novel its psychological depth. The symbols of crime, wealth, and repentance reveal that morality itself is a complex negotiation between desire and duty. Modern critics also read Moll Flanders as an early feminist text. Moll's pursuit of independence, despite her moral compromises, symbolizes the struggle of women for self-determination in a patriarchal society. Defoe thus uses symbolism not merely for moral instruction, but for social critique. Scholars have long debated whether Moll Flanders is primarily a moral tale or a social satire. Ian Watt views it as a realistic novel shaped by economic individualism, where symbols like money reflect the birth of modern capitalism. John Ricchetti interprets Moll's criminality as symbolic of the instability of identity in a fluid social order. Paula Backscheider, in her feminist readings, sees Moll as a symbol of female agency within restrictive systems. Max Novak emphasizes Defoe's moral intention, reading the novel as a spiritual autobiography disguised as fiction. Together, these perspectives reveal that Defoe's symbolism operates on multiple levels: economic, moral, psychological, and spiritual. In Moll Flanders, Daniel Defoe crafts more than a tale of adventure or crime. He creates a symbolic map of the human condition. Every object and event in Moll's life, money, clothing, marriage, theft, prison, repentance, serves as a mirror reflecting the moral and social tensions of 18th century England. Money symbolizes power and corruption. Clothing represents identity and deceit. Marriage becomes a metaphor for social ambition, and prison transforms into a symbol of spiritual rebirth. Even Moll's name and setting carry symbolic weight, turning her individual story into a universal allegory of survival and transformation. Ultimately, Moll Flanders is a novel of moral symbolism, where the protagonist's outward journey through poverty, crime, and exile parallels her inward journey towards self-knowledge and repentance. Defoe's realism, combined with his moral imagination, makes the novel both a social document and a symbolic meditation on human nature. Through its symbols, Moll Flanders speaks not only of one woman's fortunes, but of an entire society's struggle between virtue and vice, appearance and reality, sin and salvation, a struggle that remains profoundly relevant to this day.